Ezekiel's prophetic vision, as recorded in the first chapter of the book of Ezekiel, is one of the most detailed and complex in the Hebrew Bible. This vision, full of symbolism and divine imagery, not only reveals the nature of God's glory, but also sets the stage for Ezekiel's mission as a prophet. This video explores the components of Ezekiel's vision, its significance in the biblical narrative, and its implications for understanding God's relationship with Israel, human leadership, and divine judgment. The vision of the divine chariot. I looked, and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal. Ezekiel 1:4. Ezekiel's vision begins with a stormy wind from the north, symbolizing a divine invasion that is both fearsome and majestic. This portrayal of God's approach in a storm cloud suggests his absolute power and the awe-inspiring nature of his presence. The storm also indicates a moment of significant revelation, as storms in the biblical context often precede major divine actions or communications. The detail of the four living creatures with four faces each, of a human, a lion, an ox, and an eagle, symbolizes various aspects of creation and the nature of God's sovereignty. These faces represent intelligence and dominion over creation, human, royalty and strength, lion, service and strength, ox, and swiftness and freedom, eagle. Their appearance in the vision emphasizes the comprehensive rule of God over all the earth, reflecting his omnipotence and omnipresence. Symbolism of the wheels. As I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the ground beside each creature with its four faces. Ezekiel 1:15. The wheels accompanying each of the living creatures are described as a wheel intersecting a wheel, with eyes all around. These wheels symbolize the omniscience and omnipresence of God, his ability to see all things and move in any direction without obstruction. The eyes on the wheels suggest nothing is hidden from God, highlighting his perfect knowledge and justice. The mobility provided by the wheels indicates that God's presence is not limited to the temple in Jerusalem. This is particularly poignant given the historical context of Ezekiel's prophecy during the Babylonian exile. It reassures the exiled Israelites that God is with them, even in foreign lands, guiding and observing them always. The throne and the glory of the Lord. Above the vault over their heads was what looked like a throne of lapis lazuli, and high above on the throne was a figure like that of a man. Ezekiel 1:26. Atop the divine chariot, Ezekiel sees a throne made of lapis lazuli, a deep blue semi-precious stone that signifies royalty and deity. The figure on the throne, described as having the appearance of a man, emphasizes God's kingship and his governance over the universe. The description of the figure shrouded in fire and glowing light speaks to the unapproachable holiness of God and his purifying presence. This vision of God seated on his throne, moving with the living creatures, serves as a powerful reminder of God's active involvement in the affairs of the world. It also prefigures the eventual judgment upon Jerusalem and the nations, illustrating that God's movements are purposeful and directed towards establishing his justice and righteousness on earth. Ezekiel's commissioning as a prophet. He said to me, "Son of man, stand up on your feet and I will speak to you." Ezekiel 2:1. Following the overwhelming vision, Ezekiel is commissioned as a prophet. This transition from observer to participant highlights the role of prophets in communicating God's will to the people. Ezekiel's commissioning immediately after witnessing the glory of the Lord underscores the authority and responsibility bestowed upon him to speak truth and warn of coming judgments. This narrative encourages a reflection on the responsibility of leaders and prophets within society to act with integrity and courage. It suggests that true leadership is rooted in divine commission and requires steadfastness and resilience, especially when conveying uncomfortable truths or when facing opposition. The message of impending judgment. And when I looked, There before me was a hand that was stretched out to me. In it was a scroll which he unrolled before me. On both sides of it were written words of lament, mourning, and woe. Ezekiel 2, 9, 10. The scroll given to Ezekiel, written with lamentations and warnings, symbolizes the serious and sorrowful message he is to deliver to Israel. This aspect of his vision reflects the dual role of the prophet to comfort the afflicted, but also to afflict the comfortable. Ezekiel's mission is not only to foretell the destruction that would come upon Jerusalem and the nations, but also to call the people to repentance. In the context of Jerusalem and Palestine, Ezekiel's warnings remind us of the persistent call for justice and righteousness within nations. The text challenges contemporary societies to consider how divine principles of justice, mercy, and humility should inform their policies and actions, particularly in regions marked by long-standing conflict and injustice. Restoration and hope. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. Ezekiel 36:26. Despite the dire warnings, Ezekiel's prophecies also contain promises of restoration and renewal. The promise of a new heart and a new spirit signifies God's intent to not only restore, but transform the people of Israel. This message of hope is crucial, as it provides a vision of a future where not only are external circumstances restored, but also the very character of the people is renewed. This theme of transformation and renewal is particularly relevant to modern efforts at peace and reconciliation in areas like Israel and Palestine. It suggests that true and lasting peace requires internal transformation of individuals and communities, as well as external changes in political and social structures. The vision of the new temple. In visions of God, he took me to the land of Israel and set me on a very high mountain, on whose south side were some buildings that looked like a city. Ezekiel 42. Ezekiel's vision of a new temple towards the end of the book symbolizes a full restoration of the religious and communal life of Israel. The detailed description of the temple serves not only as a blueprint for a future physical structure, but as a metaphor for the restored spiritual state of the people and their renewed relationship with God. For contemporary readers, especially those concerned with the religious and political significance of Jerusalem, this vision encourages looking beyond current conflicts and struggles towards a future characterized by peace and divine presence. It challenges communities to rebuild not just physical spaces, but also to foster environments where spirituality and communal harmony can flourish. God's ultimate victory over evil. You will come up against my people Israel like a cloud to cover the land. In days to come, Gog, I will bring you against my land, so that the nations may know me when I am proved holy through you before their eyes. Ezekiel 38:16. The prophetic segments dealing with Gog and Magog depict a climactic battle where God ultimately defeats the forces of evil. This apocalyptic vision reassures the faithful that despite the appearance of overwhelming evil, God's plan includes a decisive victory over all forces that oppose his will and harm his people. This vision has significant implications for how we understand the nature of conflict and the promise of divine justice. In the context of Jerusalem and Palestine, it provides a framework that encourages perseverance and faithfulness, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. It reaffirms the belief that justice will prevail and that peace efforts are aligned with the ultimate divine purpose, the renewal of creation. Along the bank of the river, on this side and that, will grow all kinds of trees used for food. Their leaves will not wither, nor will their fruit fail. They will bear fruit every month, because their water flows from the sanctuary. Their fruit will be for food, and their leaves for medicine. Ezekiel 47:12. The vision of a renewed creation, where the river flowing from the temple brings life and healing, symbolizes the comprehensive scope of God's restoration. This picture of ecological and social restoration points to a future where the divisions and destructions of the past are healed by the sanctifying presence of God. In contemporary terms, especially in regions scarred by environmental degradation and social unrest, this vision encourages initiatives that promote ecological sustainability and social healing. It challenges individuals and communities to view environmental stewardship and social justice as integral to their spiritual and communal calling. The book of Ezekiel is rich with prophetic visions that convey deep spiritual insights and divine messages. Ezekiel's visions, particularly the opening scene in chapters 1 to 3, where he sees the glory of the Lord in the form of a complex and awe-inspiring chariot, are pivotal for understanding not just the future of Israel and its neighboring nations, but also the dynamics of divine presence and judgment. This essay explores what Ezekiel saw and its meanings for Jerusalem and Palestine, considering the historical, prophetic, and spiritual layers of these visions. The vision of the divine chariot. As I looked, I saw a stormy wind coming out of the north, a huge cloud with flashing fire, enveloped in brightness, and in the center of the fire, a gleam as of amber. Ezekiel 1:4. Ezekiel's vision of the divine chariot introduces a complex symbolism about God's mobility and presence. The creatures with 4 faces, human, lion, ox, and eagle, represent different aspects of creation: humanity, wild animals, domesticated animals, and birds. Their interconnectedness, and the wheels, suggest a God who is active and sovereign over all creation, not confined to a single locale like a temple. This vision underscores a message particularly relevant to the then and now of Jerusalem and Palestine, that God's presence and rulership extend beyond conventional religious or national boundaries. It challenges the notion of a localized deity and presents a God involved in the affairs of all nations, moving freely and with authority across all of earth. Divine judgment and glory's departure. The glory of the Lord went up from above the cherubim and moved to the threshold of the temple. The cloud filled the temple, and the courtyard was full of the radiance of the glory of the Lord. Ezekiel 10:4. The movement of the Lord's glory away from the temple in Jerusalem, which Ezekiel details in chapters 9-11, signifies a pivotal moment. God's departure due to the people's iniquity. This act of leaving the temple symbolizes a profound judgment on Jerusalem, highlighting the consequences of the nation's spiritual failures. For contemporary Jerusalem and Palestine, this narrative can be a reminder of the sacred responsibility that comes with being a place known for divine encounters. It challenges both communities to consider how their actions align with the values of justice, mercy, and humility that are required by God. The departure of the glory also serves as a warning that no place is inherently sacred if the actions of its people contravene divine principles. Prophetic warnings and hope for restoration. I will give them an undivided heart and put a new spirit in them. I will remove from them their heart of stone and give them a heart of flesh. Ezekiel 11:19. Amid warnings of judgment and accounts of destruction, Ezekiel offers a message of hope and future restoration. This prophecy foretells a time when God will renew the people's hearts and spirits, allowing them to truly follow his statutes. This is not just a physical return to the land, but a spiritual revival that transforms their relationship with God. For the modern-day states of Israel and Palestine, these passages can inspire hope for peace and reconciliation in a land often torn by conflict. They suggest that true peace comes not just through political agreements, but through profound internal transformation of the people involved. This vision for a renewed heart could guide efforts in peace education, intercultural dialogue, and cooperative development, aiming to foster a shared commitment to live out values that promote life and harmony over division and strife. Ezekiel's visions, filled with dramatic imagery and deep symbolism, continue to speak powerfully to the contemporary realities of Jerusalem and Palestine. They offer a framework for understanding God's presence as dynamic and omnipresent, His judgments as tied to moral and spiritual conditions, and His promises as hopeful pointers to a future of renewal and peace. These ancient prophecies encourage current and future generations to reflect on their spiritual and communal lives, and to strive for a reality that reflects the justice, glory, and peace of God's kingdom on earth. Symbolism of the four living creatures. As for the likeness of their faces, each had a human face, and the four had the face of a lion on the right side, the face of an ox on the left side, and the four had the face of an eagle. Ezekiel 1:10. The faces of the four living creatures in Ezekiel's vision represent various aspects of God's creation and His attributes. The human face signifies intelligence and reason. The lion symbolizes strength and majesty, the ox, endurance and service, and the eagle, sovereignty and the ability to see the broader perspective. Together, these faces reflect the comprehensive nature of God's dominion over the earth, depicting His wisdom, strength, service, and oversight. This multi-dimensional representation reinforces the understanding that God's involvement in the world is complex and multifaceted. It challenges observers to recognize the depth of God's engagement with the world, encouraging them to see divine influence in various aspects of life and creation. For communities in Jerusalem and Palestine, this vision can inspire a more holistic view of God, fostering a reverence that transcends cultural and religious boundaries. The wheels and the spirit of movement. Wherever the Spirit would go, they went, without turning as they went. As for the wheels, they were called in my hearing the whirling wheels. Ezekiel 1:20. The wheels beneath the creatures signify mobility and the ability of God's Spirit to go throughout the earth, executing His will. These are not ordinary wheels, but are described as being full of eyes and vibrant with life, symbolizing divine omniscience and omnipresence. The movement of the wheels in unison with the living creatures illustrates that God's actions are deliberate and coordinated, encompassing all directions and possibilities. In the context of Jerusalem and Palestine, the symbol of the wheels can remind individuals and leaders that God's presence and providence are not limited or static, but dynamic and pervasive. This imagery can encourage communities to remain aware of God's ongoing work in the world and to align their actions with His movements, promoting a culture of attentiveness and responsiveness to divine guidance. The throne and the divine king. And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne as the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it. Ezekiel 1:26. The throne atop the living creatures emphasizes the kingship and authority of God. The sapphire appearance of the throne suggests not only beauty and preciousness, but also durability and royalty. The figure of a man above it signifies God's governance over the world, presented in an anthropomorphic form to relate to human understanding. This depiction of God as king serves as a powerful reminder of divine sovereignty over all earthly powers and conflicts, including those in Jerusalem and Palestine. It asserts that true authority comes from divine mandate, and that any earthly governance should reflect the justice and righteousness of God's heavenly throne. This can be particularly poignant in areas with long-standing political strife, encouraging leaders and citizens alike to seek divine justice and peace in their governance. The fire and the light. From what appeared to be his waist up, he looked like glowing metal, as if full of fire, and that from there down he looked like fire, and brilliant light surrounded him. Ezekiel 1:27. The elements of fire and glowing light surrounding the figure on the throne symbolize the purifying, illuminating presence of God. Fire throughout biblical literature often denotes God's purifying judgment and His capacity to renew and cleanse. The light represents truth and God's glory, which illuminates the darkness and guides the faithful. For communities in conflict, such as those in Jerusalem and Palestine, The imagery of fire and light offers both a warning and a promise, a warning against unrighteousness and a promise of renewal and guidance. It encourages societies to undergo self-reflection and to embrace the transformative, guiding light of God's presence in their midst, seeking ways to purify societal structures through justice and truth. The response to divine majesty. When I saw it, I fell face down, and I heard the voice of one speaking. Ezekiel 1:28. Ezekiel's response of falling face down is a physical manifestation of reverence and submission to the divine presence. This act of humility is instructive for all who encounter the divine, suggesting that the appropriate response to God's majesty is one of awe, respect, and surrender. In the context of ongoing conflicts in regions like Jerusalem and Palestine, this posture of humility can be transformative, challenging individuals and leaders alike to reconsider their positions and actions in light of the overwhelming sovereignty and holiness of God. This prophetic posture encourages a collective re-evaluation of priorities and commitments, steering communities towards reconciliation and peace that align with divine principles. It underscores the need for humility in political discourse and decision-making, promoting a peace process that seeks to align with higher divine standards rather than merely human interests. Prophetic voice and social justice. And he said to me, Son of man, stand on your feet, and I will speak to you. Ezekiel 2:1. After Ezekiel's initial response of awe and humility, God commands him to stand and receive his prophetic commission. This transition from reverence to action illustrates the role of the prophet, not just as a recipient of divine visions, but as an active participant in conveying God's message to the people. Ezekiel's commission underscores the responsibility to speak truth to power, advocating for justice and adherence to divine laws. In modern settings, this aspect of Ezekiel's experience speaks to the responsibility of religious and community leaders to use their positions not just for ceremonial purposes, but for active advocacy in social justice. In places like Jerusalem and Palestine, where historical and contemporary injustices continue to fuel conflict, the prophetic call to justice and righteousness remains critically relevant. Leaders are reminded that their spiritual authority entails a duty to promote peace and justice, guided by divine wisdom and courage. The glory of God as a guiding principle for nations. As the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud on the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. Ezekiel 1:28. The vision concludes with an image of a rainbow-like brightness around the divine figure, reminiscent of the sign of God's covenant with Noah, a promise of mercy, and a reminder of God's enduring commitment to his creation. This glorious appearance serves as a powerful symbol of hope and reassurance to all who witness or learn of it, suggesting that God's glory and his promises are eternal and unchanging despite human failings and the passage of time. For the fraught dynamics of Jerusalem and Palestine, this image of the glory surrounding God can serve as a reminder that divine promises and principles should guide the actions and decisions of nations. It calls for policies and initiatives that reflect the beauty and peace of God's glory, encouraging an approach to governance and community relations that is rooted in covenantal promises of justice, mercy, and reconciliation. The interconnectedness of all creation. The creatures in the vision move in perfect harmony, directed by the Spirit, suggesting a model of interconnectedness and unity that transcends individual components. This imagery reflects a theological vision of all creation acting in concert according to divine will, guided by the Holy Spirit. This concept of interconnectedness has profound implications for how communities, especially in diverse and conflict-prone areas like Jerusalem and Palestine, might strive to coexist. It encourages a view of society where different groups and individuals move together in a unified direction towards peace and mutual respect, guided by a shared commitment to divine principles and the common good, divine transcendence and immanence. And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone, and upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it. Ezekiel 1:26. The vision of God seated on a throne above the creatures, yet appearing in the form of a man, encapsulates the divine attributes of transcendence and immanence. God is transcendent, above and beyond all creation, sovereign and majestic. Simultaneously, he is immanent, engaging with creation in a form that is relatable and understandable to humans. This dual aspect of God's nature reassures us that while God is sovereign, he is also accessible and involved in the affairs of the world. The continual presence of the Lord. The name of the city from that time on will be, "The Lord is there." Ezekiel 48:35. The concluding verse of Ezekiel, declaring that the city will be named "The Lord is there," encapsulates the ultimate promise of God's continual presence with his people. This promise serves as the foundation for all the visions of restoration and renewal throughout the book. It assures that the ultimate goal of God's dealings with humanity is not just to judge or to instruct, but to dwell with them in an enduring relationship of love and faithfulness. For communities today, this promise offers profound comfort and motivation. It encourages a life lived in awareness of God's presence, fostering a community built on the principles of love, justice, and peace that reflect the character of God. For Jerusalem and Palestine, it offers a vision of future harmony and divine presence, guiding efforts towards peace and reconciliation, rooted in the promise of God's unending love and commitment to his people. Ezekiel's visions, filled with complex imagery and profound messages, offer timeless insights into God's character, human responsibility, and the hope of restoration. These visions encourage us to see beyond immediate circumstances to the broader divine purposes at work in the world. For Jerusalem and Palestine, as for all of us, these messages from Ezekiel call us to seek justice, pursue peace, and live in the light of God's eternal presence and promises.